Welcome, everyone, to Planning and Implementing an Effective IELCE IET program. My name is Lori Howard. I'm the CASAS Program Specialist Coordinator, and I'm here to work with you today on this webinar. I have put a link to the slides in the chat. I will do that again. I will also send the slides to everyone that's on my EL Civics Network meeting list, and they are now posted on the CASAS website. I may make a few tweaks, so if you get them later, you might have a slightly different version. But I hope that's all you need for now. The webinar will also be available on the CASAS website and on the EL Civics support channel. So everything you need will be out there for you. Please type your name and agency in the chat. And if you happen to be here with your team, or you're part of your team, or other agency staff members are here, also put team after your name so that I know. We encourage people to join as teams. It's great, even in the same room, but I realize most of you will not be in a team yet, but we hope you'll be bringing back this information to your team. So we're going to review the effective elements of an IELCE IET program today. Those of you who are new to this will get something from the beginning that you'll have to start digesting. Those of you who are continuing agencies, and I think most of you are, hopefully you'll find something that you can tweak or use for continuous improvement. And I appreciate everybody's attendance here today. So let's get started. I wanted to put up a few polls, so just so I know who's here. I haven't done this for a long time, but I'm going to try to do it. Okay, let's see if this is the first one. So if you'll answer the polls, what is your role in the IELCE 243 program? And choose all that apply. Give you a few seconds to do that. Great, it looks pretty stable now. I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So we have a lot of administrators. I'm so thrilled, and I'll tell you why, because you really need your administrator to be on board with all of this in order to make it happen. We need all the other team members too, but if we don't have our administrators on board, this kind of program really can't happen. So glad to see a lot of administrators here, a lot of ESL teachers, some CTE teachers, a lot of counselors, data staff, fabulous, and other very important persons too. If you want to put who you are in the chat, I'd be happy to know what role you have if it's different. But while you're doing that, I'm going to hopefully go to another poll. See how I do this. Yeah. Sorry, give me a second. I haven't done this for a long time. And there we go. Oh, there we go. Sorry. Here we go. So now I want to know your familiarity with IELCE IET. So you have no familiarity, you're new to this, you know a little bit, or you're an expert. I know a lot of you are experts out there, and I'm hoping I can share some new information for you. I think it will be useful to you, even if you are an expert. That one of you who think you are, and that's terrific. I'm glad you think so. Okay, I think we've done that. Let's share the results. So just a few of you who are not familiar at all. I was hoping actually to get all of the new 243 agencies, but I'm not sure that they're connected in enough even to do this. But if you know anybody who's new to IELCE 243 funding, then please let them know this webinar will be on the website. Many of you are somewhat familiar, and then very familiar, which is great. And again, hopefully we'll have some new content for you, and I appreciate you attending to today. And then our one expert, which is fabulous. So glad. Okay, let's do one more right now. Just want to know if you participated. Uh-oh. I didn't do that one. Let's see, try again. This one is not launching. Okay, well, why don't you raise your hand then? Have you participated in either one of these webinars, either the presentation that Corey Ryala gave in October to new administrators, or you've either gone online and participated in EOS Civics Basics? I gave a new one in September of 2023. Did you go to either of those? And would you raise your hand if you did? Okay, I have about 9 people raising their hands, and we have 81 people here right now, so that's not very many. Just to tell you, those are 2 crucial presentations that you should go to. The links are here. They're online, they're on the CASAS website. Very important to do that. I'm not going to talk about those things. Those are the basic requirements and how the funding works and the co-ops and all of those things. That's not what we're going to talk about today. But you do need that background to work well in an IELCE program. So I'm relying on you after this session, if you haven't already, that you go to both of those presentations, and they are on the CASAS website. And then I put my slides too on the CASAS website here. Let's see if we have another poll and if I can actually launch this other one. No, I think that's all I have for today. Great. Thank you so much for participating in the polls and bearing with me as I relearn how to do this again. And remember, if you would, please type your name and agency in the chat so I can keep track of your attendance. And then if you're here with a team member, either personally located with them or remote from them, but they're in your agency and you can talk with them about this, please write team after your name. That would help a lot so we know. Thank you so much. That helps me do the training. Let's see if I now have lowered, if you would lower your hands, that'd be great. I'd appreciate it. Okay, so these are our goals and objectives for today. At the end of the session, you'll be able to identify the elements of a California WIOA Title II IELCE IET 243 funded program. That's a big mouthful, but that's what we call it. I like to differentiate it because a lot of states come to look at our website, and we want them to know that this is for California only. Each state runs their WIOA Title II programs in different ways, and so these are the rules and the suggestions for California. And then step number 2, identify the steps to take to plan and implement an effective program. We're going to go through all the steps today, and I have organized them so that they relate directly to the steps in the IELCE report. So going through this today is going to help you be familiar with the content of the IELCE report that's coming up, and that all 243 funded agencies are required to participate in. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Hopefully I will see them if I don't call on you, or you can raise your hand and then I'll be sure to get to you. Okay. Wait a minute, I went backwards. Sorry. Okay, and I just would like you to have a piece of paper or pen at hand. I want you to be able to write something. If that means you can do it by computer, that's great, or on your phone, no problem. But please have something, because I'm going to ask you to write some things or type some things, okay? So please have those things. First, we're going to do an overview of the, again, California WIOA Title II IELCE 243 funded program. And you'll notice that IELCE is separate here because those are the funds we're working with. And the WIOA Title II grant requires the IELCE program to be designed to prepare English language learners for and placed in, I think it should be unsubsidized employment in in-demand industries and occupations that lead to economic self-sufficiency. That is the goal of the federal government, the goal of these funds. We owe a Title II 243 funds, and this is what we are trying to accomplish to meet the requirements of the federal government. The federal government requires 3 components. These are not necessarily courses, but these components to be part of your IELCE and program. And they are in the red: adult education and literacy. We're going to call that ESL, okay, here, because in our state, these funds go only to ESL students, or shouldn't say to, but the programs are for ESL students, English language learners. So your program needs to include adult education literacy, which in California is English for English learners, workforce preparation in the blue, and workforce training. All of that together is what is considered to be IET. So a lot of people use IELCE and IET interchangeably. It's not exactly that, but in order to accommodate those of you who use IET for this, we often put IELCE/IET, but the funds are actually IELCE funds, just so you know. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working on, how you integrate these components and how you prepare a program or implement a program that includes these components. Remember, they're not necessarily courses, they're components that need to be part of the instruction. So I'm going to give you an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, just briefly, and then I'll go in more in depth. So here we have on 2 slides, 5 important qualitative elements, and I've numbered them because these are also the 5 qualitative items that you are asked to respond to on the IELCE report and plan. This is the new title this year, the IELCE report and plan. So as we go through these, you'll be reviewing the items you need to report to the California Department of Education. So starts with needs assessment, assessment of agency's regional priority job and training needs and program and partner goals, and assessment of student training needs and career goals. You'll be asked to describe how you do this, how you know what training programs to teach. So that's part of your needs assessment. Number 2, do you have an articulated marketing and outreach plan for recruitment, orientation, and continuing support of students? You'll be asked to describe that. So that's what you want to put in place. Number 3, time and funding and implementation of a plan for staff collaboration and professional development. Staff collaboration is a crucial part of IELCE IET programs. You can't run an effective one without it because it is a required element, as all of these things are. And there needs to be professional development in order to have that effectively, that collaboration. So how are you going to do that? That's one of the 5 important elements. The 4th one is to plan and implement the curriculum and instruction in the 3 components: adult ESL literacy, workforce preparation, and workforce training. Remember, they're not necessarily separate courses, but the content of those 3 components needs to be in your program somewhere. We'll talk about that. And the curriculum instruction needs to be conducted concurrently, that it must use a single set of learning objectives, that it be high quality, occupationally contextualized content, that it has real world application, and that it includes instructional technology that's responsive to student and industry needs. So that's your curriculum and instruction. And the last one, use of data and feedback for evaluation and continuous improvement. So how do you collect your data and how do you use it to improve your program? So those are the 5 basic components. I'm going to just show you the 2 quantitative elements. We're not going to talk about them, but these are also things that you need to respond to. You need to talk about how you track attendance in these programs, and you need to tell, number 1, within your agency how you track it, and then if you're collaborating with other agencies, then how you track it outside of your agency. So we're not going to go in depth on that, but I just want to tell you that's also a requirement and something you must report in the IELCE report. Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 components that are crucial, again, requirements of the program. So the 3 instructional components, as I mentioned, adult literacy, which is ESL, workforce preparation, and workforce training, which in California we often call CTE, career technical education, must occur concurrently. And it can occur concurrently in either a co-teaching or an alternate teaching model. Again, this is something you need to plan for and report out. Co-teaching, learners are in one classroom and there's more than one teacher or a person that is credentialed in all of these 3 areas, ESL, or 2 areas, ESL and workforce training. That's a possibility. But they're teaching all of the components, ESL, workforce preparation, and career technical education. It's all happening in one classroom, either by one or more teachers or alternating teaching. Learners are co-enrolled in 2, it could be 3, but coordinated and concurrent classes that, again, include this content of the 3 components. Okay, 2 more requirements. English language learners in an IELCE 243 funded program must have the opportunity to be co-enrolled in workforce training. So they can be in a program and be at the beginning of the program and not yet have enrolled in workforce training, but they have the opportunity by taking these other courses or participating in that other instruction to now or soon be enrolled in workforce training. Because as you remember, the requirement for this money by the federal government is that students are participating in training in order to have get jobs. And the last one, another requirement, is that IELCE 243 programs use COAPs, civic objective and additional assessment plans, or use the COAP system for adult literacy and or workforce preparation as part of their program. Some of you have had great programs and not implemented the COAPs, and you didn't get any payment points. So part of this program, or the funding, is for you to get the funding. The way you get the funding is by implementing the COAP system, and that's how your agency earns 243 payment points, and you earn it through the instruction and assessment of English language learners. So again, there are other requirements specifically for the program, but these are the ones that relate to us now. So remember to go to these presentations that I mentioned earlier. There's a link to the webinar here. There's a link to the slides here, and you can find everything on the IELTS Civics website, which the link is here. I'm going to just make sure that you, whoops, have the slides. Oh gosh, did I wreck it? Let's see. I'm just going to put the slides in the link one more time. Oh, I guess I didn't send that one. There we go. Okay, it was already there. So there you are. The slides for this presentation are here in the chat. So now I want to ask for your burning questions. I can't tell you all about everything that was in these 2 workshops I just mentioned, but are there any burning questions? Otherwise, I'd like to move along. But if you have a burning question, put it in the chat, or you could unmute or raise your hand if that's helpful to you, if you need to ask something right now.
Hey, Lori, it's going back to the concurrent enrollment. And I've heard a couple different ways people are doing it and wondering what is it. So I've seen where some people will have a pullout for the students versus not in the same class, like part of the day they're pulled out, maybe an hour or so, then they come back in. Is that appropriate?
Sure, that's very appropriate. There's many ways to do that. And, we can talk about that in another time. But yes, any way you think it can be done, it just has to be done. You have to have the alternate teaching. The components need to be taught. So however you do it is fine. It has to be a certain number of hours. Remember, for the teaching and assessment of a co-op, there has to be at least 30 hours of instruction. So you have to make sure you have that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yarik, you have your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute.
Yes. Hello. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Lori. I have a question about the beginning of your presentation regarding the collaboration with outside partners. If you could perhaps elaborate on that point a little bit, to what extent, what would be the process to engage those partners? What documents are required to substantiate, to back up the process?
Okay, can I hold your question, Yarik, until we get to the next section, and we'll
Absolutely.
talk about it at that point. Thank you so much.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Yarik. Penny, you have a question?
Yeah, Lori, it may be one you want to hold off as well, because
Okay.
I'm very interested in understanding what kind of curriculum materials agencies are looking for, especially for contextualized work, and just looking at where those sources are and potentially getting in on that list.
Oh, okay. And when you say getting in,
Just having software recommendations.
Software.
I've worked on several, and I just want to see what's available, because I think there's some others out there, new and upcoming, that might serve this purpose very well.
So that is something that we can develop and talk about and add to, and all of you can send me your materials and I'll send it back out to everyone, but I'm not going to talk about that specifically.
Okay.
It's a very general thing, but I appreciate you raising it. And then I have a question. Thank you, Penny. I have a question. What is the difference between workforce preparation and workforce training? So workforce training is the actual training to do the job. So if you're doing a welding, if you're learning welding, you know, the actual welding of the materials. Workforce preparation is the soft skills that help you get a job or help you talk with your teacher or trainer or employer, for example. How to fill out a job application, you know, all of those things. That's part of the workforce preparation. And the COAP system can be taught either in the EL adult literacy portion or in the workforce preparation portion of the components. Hope that answered your question. And let me just see this other one. Do we need to include the CTE classes, attendance, et cetera, and TOPS Pro? Yes. So I am not the data person, but yes, you need to report the CTE classes. That's how you show in your data that there's concurrency. And you may or may not know, and again, this is something you might learn in the requirements slides, that the payment points are linked to that training. So you need to show concurrent attendance in that training to get the maximum payment points. So yes, that's something to ask the data meeting, how to do that. Thank you, Jill. And let me see here. Okay. Sorry for Okay, so oh, Neil. Hi, Neil. So for IET training, that requires students to have an advanced level. How do we manage to get that paired test score? Some programs have ESL student testing outside of ESL levels due to the technical part. So all you need is a paired test score. Students don't have to improve. They just have to take the test, a pre and a post. There is no more in IELCE, there is no requirement to meet the 236 number or not pass that 236 number as was the requirement previously, but there's no requirement. So students can score at any test level. They just need to have a pre and a post test. That is my understanding. Okay, and let me just see here. Oh, the opportunity. Okay. So Liz is asking about the opportunity for to co-enroll. That just it means a student who hasn't yet co-enrolled. So there are many definitions of the opportunity, and it would be up to you to decide what that is, and perhaps your CDE consultant if they come out to audit you. My feeling is that they should be close to being able to enroll. So for example, in welding, it takes a very high level of English to pass a welding entrance exam. So I wouldn't consider beginning literacy, or I should say beginning low ESL, someone who has the opportunity can co-enroll, because it may be a number of years. So for me, I would like to say within the year, they might be able to co-enroll. However, there are distinct impressions about this. And so if you think they have the opportunity, then it would be your job to convince your CDE consultant if they question that. I hope that answers your question. So workforce prep and workforce training overlap. I guess you consider it overlap, but again, one is the actual job. Well, I should say, yes, there can be overlap between workforce preparation and workforce training, because hopefully with the single set of learning objectives, you're teaching a similar thing. So in workforce training in healthcare, for example, one of the important things is talking with a patient. So certainly that's part of English literacy, because it's the language and workforce preparation to communicate with a patient. And that also could be taught in CTE. because that's the purpose of the training, or one of the purposes. So it depends on what the training is, and yes, there can be overlap. We're getting very much into the weeds, but I don't want to let these go. So what if your class is all together at the same time? How do you enter this into TE? So I'm going to give you TE questions to go to a TE meeting or a data meeting to learn how to do those things, okay? That's not what we're talking about here, but thank you for your question. It is an important question, but I'm not going to talk about that here. Okay, again, data. So the paired test can be in any test series, any approved, NRS approved test series, as long as the pre and the post is the same test series. That was a question. Okay, I think we did it. And thank you, Portia, for putting in something about TE. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to move on from the questions, but I know they were important, but let's try to get to the meat of some of this. I don't like you to go without your burning questions, because then you're thinking about it and not able to concentrate on the other things. So now we're going to move to steps to IELCE IET 243 program implementation. And I just want to repeat again that this is an overview of the steps. I'm hoping you'll take this information back to your team at your agency and discuss these things using the resources that I'm giving you today and that we're talking about here, to work with your staff members and your agency team to either begin a program or continue or improve your program. And then if you have questions, you can always contact me or your CASAS program specialist. And we can also do a follow-up training if you would like to talk about some of these issues. But this is just an overview, and hopefully you'll take this back. Okay, and if you have questions I haven't answered in the chat, I will get back to you about those. So before taking any steps, you need to form a team. This program does not work from a single person's efforts. You have to have a team, and you have to have an administrator on the team. I think at the beginning of this grant, very often a teacher would just try to make this happen, and it doesn't really work well that way. You need to have your administrators, your coordinators, your teachers, your counselors, your data staff, your clerical staff, everyone at your agency involved in talking about this kind of program and how you're going to make it happen and who needs to do what. And you have to work together. So you can't only have your ESL teachers on board. You have to have your CTE teachers on board. If that means finding one CTE teacher and one ESL teacher that want to make this happen to start, that's how you do it. Okay, but you have to have all these people on board. So that's the important thing. And then again, I just want to reiterate that if you're new to IELCE IET, that hopefully you can follow these steps to implement your new program. And I'm going to give you some resources, other resources to do that as well. And if you're continuing agency, hopefully you'll identify which steps need implementation or improvement. Maybe some things were left out or not as good as they could be. This is a program of continuous improvement. So every year at the end, you should be evaluating it from input from your industry partners, your staff, your students, the community, and then reevaluating how you can improve it. That's what's going on. And so then prioritize those steps. So step one, and again, this matches the 5 questions in our IELCE report. So hopefully this will help you not only learn how to develop a program, or improve a program, but also complete your IELCE report, which is one of the requirements of the grant. So first question, what priority jobs and training needs exist in your area? So you need to, in order to know this, there's a lot of surveying you can do. And if any of you would like to type in the chat how you do that, that would be great. But you need to consider how you would do this. And you might want to talk to your colleagues who've done it already. How does your agency interact with your industry partners, the jobs that might be available in your community? Your workforce development board can be of use, your Title I partners, your CTE advisory groups. Okay, how do you do that? Who do you contact? If you don't have contact with these people now, get contact with them and then try to figure this out, how you're going to evaluate. Now, usually, I think it is the charge of CTE programs to have evaluated what kind of jobs are in the community in order to offer job training that helps people move into jobs. So you just want to make sure you know that. So maybe you need to contact your CTE course group, or maybe you're going to collaborate with a community college or other agency in your area and ask them how they know what jobs are needed in your area. You don't want to choose a training program that, number one, your students don't want to train in, and or there are no jobs when they finish the training. You need to know that students can get jobs. That's the charge of this. So that's the important thing. So make sure that the training opportunities you are offering at your agency do meet the needs of the community. And you want to think about what training opportunities exist at your agency now, okay? And or what training opportunities exist at your agency. And there also might be training opportunities with industry or other educational partners. And again, what do your training programs do your English learners want to participate in? It may be a job out there, but none of your learners want to participate in it. At that point, you might need to do some orientation to students as to why they should want to do that or how they could do it. And you want to think about what training programs your English language learners could participate in with English support. So the IELCE program is all about giving learners support in their language skills in order for them to participate in training and succeed on the job. So they may currently not be allowed to enroll in certain CTE programs, but it would be your job to talk with your CTE teachers, see what level of English is needed, how students might be supported so that they could participate in training that perhaps was not available to them previously. Whoops. Okay, so after the training, we're not going to do it right now. And this goes to your question, Yarrick, and maybe you want to collaborate with some of your colleagues. You want to find these answers. What priority jobs and training needs exist in your area? So the beginning of working with your team, you need to know this. And how will you begin or continue to work with these partners? Are you going to meet with them? Are you going to have continuous meetings? Again, this should not be one-time thing. You should be continually meeting with people. Are you going to set up advisory groups? And I noticed that some of you are saying the advisory groups. Paul Kreitzer, one of our ESL, our CASAS program specialists, is talking about the program CASAS eWorks and how you can get instruction or have instruction for your students in soft skills and a tool to evaluate their soft skill success. And how does your agency stay current on employment needs and opportunities? So that's what you want to do as your first step with your team. So we can't really talk about that today because it's going to be individual. But what I'd like you to do on your piece of paper is just take about 2 minutes to make a list on that paper. What kinds of job opportunities do you think there are, or have you already researched? And you find that there are job opportunities. And then which workforce training program does your agency or another agency in your area already offer? So what kind of job opportunities are there, and what training could students get for those? Do you have it, or can you go to another agency? And then for continuing agencies, are you already offering them in your IELCE or IET program? And if not, why not? So take a second, or take 2 minutes, please, to write down on your paper the answers to these questions. Okay, and I see that some of you are answering people's questions or asking people's questions in the chat, and that's really great. So feel free to talk to your colleagues that are here. That's really good. Let me move to the next slide. So you've written hopefully your list on what kind of opportunities are there, perhaps ones that your agency hasn't taken advantage of or hasn't worked with yet. And which programs do you have? Now I'd like you to review your list from the one you just did and consider those job and training opportunities that there are in your region or school. And if your agency provided English support, what kinds of workforce training might your English learners be interested in or be able to participate in? So if you could circle the possible workforce training on your list that you think your English learners might be able to be in or be interested in. And perhaps if you remember with support, they may not be able to do it yet, but if you work on the program with support, circle the possible workforce training on your list. And then type the workforce trainings you've circled in the chat. Try to limit the repeat. So if you see someone already typing there, please don't type it again. Let's see what we get in the chat in terms of programs that are available. The jobs are available in your community. There is training and your students might be interested in training. Okay, medical field. And again, many of you have a grant for healthcare this year, or some of you do CNA, pharmacy tech. Again, everybody's very interested in medical. Senior home care assistant. Huge culinary market in Monterey. That's cool. We haven't seen that before. Manufacturing, culinary, good. Home care worker. Great. Child development, welding. Welding is a tough one because it requires so much in terms of the tests and the safety, but it's a good one. Automotive technology, I like to hear that. Solar technology, that's great. Okay, so there's a lot of ideas there. So the trick is to work with the CTE instructors or to gain CTE instructors in those areas if you think there are jobs out there and you've worked with your advisory boards, et cetera, to figure out that that is the case, and then work to see how you can develop your instructional program that will allow your students to concurrently enroll in English language support as well as the training. And I just want to give you an example. A number of years ago, I went to a conference in Oregon, and they were talking about their IBEST program, where they're working in doing just what we're talking about here. And it was on a community college campus, and a number of students were not able to pass the community college entrance exam. But they were taken in as a cohort. They were worked with in their English literacy, workforce preparation, and CTE skills. And by the end of a 4-month period, they were so motivated to learn the vocabulary, et cetera, that went along with this training, that they raised their scores. The majority of them raised their scores enough to pass the community college entrance exam and continue with the training. It happened to be in medical. So if we give our students the opportunity and the support to learn the English they need to participate in training, their English skills are going to improve dramatically. And that's what we want for our students. We don't want them to have to wait till they, quote unquote, have learned English in order to get training. The point of this money is to support them so they can get the training at the same time and get on the job as soon as possible. Okay, and I see some suggestions over here. So please read the chat, and you know how to save the chat. Go to the 3 little dots at the bottom and you can save the chat so you have these ideas for yourself after the training. Thank you so much for participating in that. I appreciate it. And I just want to give a little bit more information to you. So one of the requirements of the IELCE program in California is to do a needs assessment. So you need to do the needs assessment of the workforce of your community to see what kind of jobs are available. But then you need also to do a student assessment. And these are some suggestions about how you might do that. So first, you've surveyed the community for job opportunities. You've decided which job training your agency or partner agencies can offer or do offer already. Discuss with the CTE and ESL teachers what level of English language learners could participate in the training with English support. Develop a needs assessment related to that job training and perhaps others that you're offering your ESL students. Administer that assessment to learners interested in job training, those who want to get a job, and see which they'd be interested in doing. And then utilize the results to inform your agency's development of related instruction and selection of existing civic objectives, COAPs, or the creation of new ones. So for example, one of our agencies wanted to, or was already doing a custodial program, but they needed the English support to go along with it. So CASAS worked with that agency to develop a custodial COAP so that they could offer instruction in the language needed to do custodial work, and that they could earn payment points by using that in their program. So that's number 76, sorry. It's under hospitality and tourism. That's where custodial goes. And we have that co-op that all of you could use. Just to say that if you're doing a new training like solar technology we haven't done before, maybe you could use one of the more general ones that have to do with safety and manufacturing, but maybe you want to develop one directly related to solar technology. CASAS would be happy to work with you on that, and then we'll share it. If we can, we'll share it on the CASAS website for everyone to use. Okay, and Jennifer Gallardi is asking, has there been any CTE programs that use ChatGPT to generate course content? And so feel free to answer her, and we think that's a great idea, just to say. Okay, a little bit more information about COAPs. Again, you need to do the training to know more about this, but just so you know, there are 33 civic objectives that are funded for IELCE. Not all of them are funded, so you want to make sure you choose the funded ones so that you can earn the payment points appropriate to your training program. And those 33 are related to workforce preparation and workforce training outcomes. There are general ones like identify and access employment and training resources to get and keep a job, or ones that relate to soft skills. And there's a list here. The link at the bottom is the list of all of the COAPs, the civic objectives, forgive me, and which ones, they're marked with a little sword, which ones are funded. And that's on this link to list at the bottom there. And there are also job-specific civic objectives, as I mentioned, in these 7 areas. And this last one is the custodial one I mentioned. And there are multiple COAPs for each objective. There are approximately 190 now. You can see the pre-approved list here. And again, feel free to consider developing your own. You must work with CASAS in order to do that. But we're available to you. Okay, so the last question in this section I'd like you to consider is, how will you continue to collaborate with your workforce training partners and community and students for continuous improvement of your program? So if you type in the chat, what kind of things do you think you might do? Again, you need to talk to your team about this, but how can you continue to collaborate with your training partners, the community, and your students? What kinds of things might you do? Go ahead and type in the chat. Increase advisory meetings to quarterly. I think that's a great idea. Again, it doesn't really help to have them once a year. Quarterly meetings would be really good. Survey students more specifically. Work with them to survey local businesses and determine business needs. Attend quarterly meetings of our WIB, I think, or Workforce Development Board. Great. Those are some great ideas. Thank you so much. And again, please save the chat so you have these ideas, especially if you're a new program and you're not already doing these things. Your colleagues are informing you of how they do it and are successful in doing it. Foster more connections with our AGCC. Great. Partnering with our WIB and working more closely with them. Yeah, really important. And again, your administrators hopefully have those connections. Your CTE programs have those connections, and so try to deepen those connections. And talk with your colleagues at other agencies, how they do it. Great, wonderful. Okay, any questions about this first section? Step 1. Go ahead and raise your hand or type in the chat or unmute. Okay, I'm going to move on then, and you can ask your question at any time and I'll try to get to it. So let's look at step 2, provide support services. I have to say, this is the most crucial one. There's been a lot of research in support services. If we don't support our students, they're not going to succeed in getting a job. We can't just say, oh, we have CTE programs. Oh, we have counseling. Oh, we have all those things. But if you are not making a concerted effort to develop a cohort or have the counselors come into your classrooms or, follow up with each of your students as to what they're doing, what barriers they might have, they're not going to succeed. Even if they have to go to the community college, finding their classroom at a community college. I went to a meeting once at community college near me, had just rebuilt itself and was beautiful. And just finding the classroom was a chore for me, a native English speaker. So, our students need support. And so this is crucial, research has shown. So please focus in on this area, prioritize student success by providing wraparound services that address basic needs and logistical barriers to strengthen IET program persistence. I got that. It's a little quote from the IET quality indicators. I wanted to be sure to cite them there. So you want to put in place an articulated marketing and outreach plan, which includes recruitment of students. You can't just say you're going to do this and then do it and not find students who are going to participate in it. You have to recruit students and let them know that they can do it. Bring students who have completed training back into ESL classrooms or other classrooms to say how they've succeeded. There's a lot that needs to happen. You need to give students good orientation and then follow up with that orientation. Counseling, navigation, transition services, job placement, and then elimination of barriers, childcare, transportation, time constraints. When you schedule the classes, all has to do with whether students can come or not, or whether they participate. So these are all the elements you need to look at and implement. Okay, so let's get out your paper again. Make a list of what kind of support services your English learners need. So other than I think I said, anything that's not on the list above. So we've already talked about these. Is there anything else that is a barrier to instruction or success? Can you type in the chat? Money, yeah. So students need support. They may not be able to do this. So can they get a Pell Grant or some other kind of grant? Some schools give scholarships to students to participate. Supplies or uniforms, yes. How are you going to get those? Will the job site, will the employer provide that to you? Will they donate it? College and career counselors. Okay. How to uniquely advertise to reach students, transportation, that students have a comfort level. Yes. How are you going to make the students comfortable in training? As I said, maybe it's at a community college site. They've never been there before. Having the teachers sometimes come or doing visits really helps. Okay, this is a great list of additional things. So these are all things to think about as you plan or improve your program. Have you looked at these barriers? Those of us who have graduated college and are doing the jobs we're already doing have figured out ways to avoid or get over these barriers, but our students haven't necessarily, although they have incredible skills in other areas. So we need to figure out what's keeping them from succeeding, from going to training, from going to class, whatever it is. And then we've got here filling basic needs such as food and childcare. Yeah. Okay, more contextualized curriculum. Yeah, because we sometimes aren't helping students. We're teaching them English, but it doesn't have any content related to the training. And so they're not succeeding in training. All of those are great ideas. Again, save the chat so you can keep those. Thank you so much for your participation. Okay, I think we just learned it. Okay, let's move into that. And Penny says there are options for contextualized curriculum. Penny's going to share that with us a little bit later when we get to step 4. So step 3 is facilitate program coordination, and this has to do with collaboration. So you want collaboration among your industry partners, your WIB, all of those things, but you need collaboration at your agency site. So ESL, ABE, ASE, CTE teachers, and data staff, clerical staff, administrators, coordinators, they all have to work together to make this happen. It cannot be separate. And so there must be an organized plan to facilitate this collaboration, and you have to have all of these people involved. And they must have time and funding and professional development to collaborate to develop these things. Okay, all the things we've talked about, the outreach plan, the wraparound services, eliminating the barriers. People just can't just do that necessarily. There has to be training and discussion about how to do it. Okay, and the staff members need to have time and funding and professional development to collaborate to develop the curriculum, as we talked about before, the curriculum and instruction, which uses a single set of learning objectives, has high quality occupational and contextualized content that in a second Penny's going to share with us, incorporate co-op instruction and assessment, include real world application, and be technologically appropriate. And I've listed for you 2 webinars that I've done for you, developing a single set of learning objectives. There's a webinar and slides. I've linked to them here, but again, they're on the CASAS website. California IELTS Civics Basics, Civic Participation, IELCE, and CAPE. Again, those are the requirements for the program. You need to know that before you can develop the curriculum. And there are webinar and slides here. Okay, and part of the facilitating program coordination is the data collection. We need to know how to do TE, and you need to your data staff needs to attend TE meetings and talk with their colleagues and figure out how to do these things. Some of you were asking how to do. There are TE meetings, etc. I don't know if any of the program specialists want to list or name the TE meetings that are available. And then you want to use data also to evaluate your programs for continuous improvement through surveys, through data that you've collected, the numbers of students who've been employed, the number of students who've participated in training, et cetera. All of those numbers are really important. So that's why our data and clerical staff need to be involved in this planning as well, so that we can get the data and be able to evaluate our programs as at least one measure. Okay, so after your training, again, we can't do this together now, but this is a question you should work with your team. How will your agency organize a plan or continue to involve your administrators, coordinators, everyone, teaching staff, counselors, to work together to plan, implement, or improve your IELCET program? So if you could, oh, I should have taken this away because we're going to do this after training. We're not going to type in the chat here, but this is what I'd like you to do after. But right now, I'd like you to write on your paper, what are the barriers to involving some or all persons listed in planning and implementation? And what are some of the ways you can overcome these? If you would, on your paper right now, take 2 minutes and answer these 2 questions. Okay, and some of you are already writing in the chat, so I've asked you to type in the chat the barrier and the way to overcome it if you would, and try not to repeat if you can. So Sharon says we all work together as a team, and that's great. Sharon, you and your team are working together. Some of the barriers to that are coordinating time and scheduling meetings in advance. That's a barrier. Anybody else have any barrier or a way to overcome it? Or maybe Zoe, that was your way to overcome it, to coordinate the time for meetings and schedule them in advance. Okay, anybody else have any ideas in the chat, or if you want to share it? Yeah, building in collaboration versus hoping it happens. That's right. It's not going to just happen by itself. You need to build it into your plan. So you need to get funding for that, getting teachers out of their classrooms, setting aside staff time for that. It's not going to happen unless you build it in. Thank you, Steve. Zoom meetings, record videos of meetings for those who can't attend. That's a great way to get over the barrier that everybody can't be there, or do Zoom meetings so everybody can attend. Great. So training, making WIO relevant to everyone on campus. Yeah, I think training is really important. And again, Casas is here to help you with training. So I hope this training is going to be helpful to you. And I hope you'll take it back to your agency and use it as a template. Okay. And again, I'm trying to give you things to think about and work with your team on. So let's move to the next item. Whoops. Oh, I have a poll for you. So we talked about professional development, and I'd like to know what type of professional development will be offered to staff members. So as you plan this, what do you think you'll be doing? What kind of professional development do you think would be helpful to be able to help your staff members do what we've already talked about doing? And let me hopefully launch this. Oh, it says it's been launched, but I don't see it here. I'm sorry. I did do this, but somehow they're not launching. I must have done something wrong. Okay, so can you just type in the chat then, because I can't have you do this poll somehow. What type of professional development will be offered to staff members? Which one do you think is the most effective in order to help your teachers collaborate or your staff members collaborate? What kinds of things would you like them to do? Go ahead and type it in the chat. Communities of practice, online courses. Okay, conference attendant. Okay, all of the above. Yes, CalPro. CalPro is another resource, and I link to that at the end of our session here. Okay, thank you for typing. I'm sorry I didn't allow you to use the poll. Okay, and great. Anything other? What are the others? Any people have any others they would like to suggest would be a good other that's not listed here?
Can I say something real quick,
Sure,
Lori?
Anna. Sure.
Yeah. When we first began starting, just even the planning of the IET programs, we had a really hard time even finding not only other agencies that could, kind of share the wheel since they already invented it. But I think just sharing curriculum will be really helpful among ourselves, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, because then, the way I see it is we're all getting funds from, from the state and federal government. So therefore we're saving the government money when we share, and therefore not use more resources to invent the same wheel that was already invented. So I would say maybe more collaboration among other schools and more sharing of curriculum and resources.
Yeah, and I hope I have the right. Portia, help me with the link. I may have put it up wrong. That is exactly why we developed the EL Civics Exchange. We're still trying to post more materials there, but that is exactly why we developed the EL Civics Exchange, to post instructional materials that would help agencies have appropriate curriculum, and we'd love to have more there. The one key issue is making it accessible, 508 compliant, and that's what we're struggling with right now. But if you have materials you'd like to share, please contact us so that we can help you put them up on the website and share with others. And yes, we shouldn't be proprietary of our materials. We should be willing to share the instructional materials and also our co-op assessments, as long as our agency who we're sharing with agrees to keep it secure. We should be sharing because, as you say, it's all funded by the same source, and rather than reinventing the wheel, we should help each other and then even collaborate on developing some of these materials so that more than one agency can use it. Thank you for that comment. And I wanted to do this other poll, just how will time and funding be set aside? How can you get the funding? I think that's what often is not considered. We expect our staff members just to do these jobs, and they really can't over and above what they're already doing. So how will you find time or funding to continue this staff collaboration and professional development? So there's some ideas here. Teacher advisor hours. I know different agencies use a different term for that, but it's usually a lesser pay for a teacher hour. It's not a teaching hour, but a preparation hour or a development hour that teachers can get paid. And there's usually a certain number of hours that can be used. Some agencies have class prep time they could use for this. If you're doing this correctly, you're getting funds for your payment points for the 243 co-op. So that money could be used for the funding of time and for staff collaboration or professional development. And very often there's a cutout in your budget for that purpose. So use that money. I often see that people don't use the money that is set aside for staff development. So I'm going to ask you to type in the chat what other ways your agency funds your teachers, your staff members to collaborate or to participate in professional development. Can you type that in the chat so we can see some other ways? A resource teacher who does a lot of these things for all departments, but especially for ESL and ESL adjacent needs. And that's great for ESL. What about CTE? Where's the money coming from for them to collaborate? CAPE work group meetings, professional learning communities, that's great. In-house PD meetings. But again, Kristen, are those paid for, or are they are teachers and staff members just giving their time? I think we can ask for that at the beginning, but it's not going to continue if people aren't paid for their time. So we have to figure out ways to do that. CAPE funds, thank you. Oh, the resource teacher is also CTE. Okay, great. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Let's move on to step 4. And again, I'm going to, this presentation is 90 minutes. We have until 2:30, and I think we're doing perfectly with our time right now. Thank you so much for your participation. Okay, so any questions for the first 3 steps? So Steve says, dollar shows your priorities. I agree. Funding shows your priorities. We set aside hours for PD and collaboration for our CTE teachers. That's wonderful. And I wish that happened in all of our agencies. So we need to make that happen in order to be successful with these programs. Good. Started an RS teacher this year. I don't know what RS means. I'm sorry, but you started a teacher and it's awesome. I'm glad, Sharon. Tell us what RS means. Resource. Okay, thank you. A resource teacher. Good. Again, but one person can't do this by themselves. They have to collaborate. So got to get more people involved. Okay, if we don't have questions here, let's move on. One question. Can we use 243 funding to help with the barriers? So I'm not 100% sure about that. Do I have an administrator here, or Neil, or someone else, CDE or program specialist, who could answer that question, that how to use the 243 funding? Neil says probably not. But I have, well, no, I won't say that. But it would depend. Okay, so Title I, case by case. Okay, so look into that. Ask your fellow administrators about that question, how that's done. Okay, and check with your CD your specific CD consultant. Okay. Okay, let's go on to step 4. Again, we're not going to go in depth in this because this is the teacher issue, and how your teachers work together. But step 4, planning and implementing curriculum and instruction. So all of your teachers need to be involved. ESL, ABE, ASC, CTE, all involved, because our ABE and ASC students can participate. They can't earn payment points yet, but they can participate in training, and they earn outcomes by their immigrant integration outcomes, which are linked to the civic objectives and additional assessment plan. So they can participate in the instruction, and they don't receive payment points, but they do get outcomes. And you know, some of our ESL our English language learners are participating in ABE and ASE classes now. They can be counted in an IELCE class and receive payment points. So again, our 3 components, adult ESL literacy, workforce preparation, and workforce training, need to be conducted concurrently. They need to use a single set of learning objectives, which you are asked to delineate in your IELCE report and use in your instruction. I'm not going to read all these again, but I had mentioned these before. High quality, occupationally contextualized content. You have to have the co-op instruction and assessment. We want real world application and the use of instructional technology. And as we've said, professional development activities are key to this. And again, I've put these important slides here at the bottom of this slide. Okay, so what I wanted you to consider this time is, what are the barriers to collaboration? We've talked about other barriers, but what are the barriers to collaboration? Can you type in the chat? So these teachers need to work to develop the curriculum instruction. What is keeping them from doing that? So teachers who have other jobs, so part-time teachers who have other jobs and don't have the time to do that, hourly teachers, yes. So that's, again, an administrative issue that we need to look at, and perhaps with our districts, that we have to hire full-time teachers in order for them to be able to do this. Adjunct faculty working at multiple campuses with varying schedules, no paid time to meet, yes. So those are the barriers. And very often it's the culture in the classroom and in the school. I once went to a school to help them develop a kind of program, and they had everything. They had ESL, they had ABE, ASC, CTE, a robust program. And I did a training with them. And first I had them sit at tables in their own program so they could talk about content. And then I asked them, after the break, I asked them to switch tables so that there were 2 CTE teachers, 2 ESL teachers, 2 ABE, and 2 ASE. And I couldn't get the teachers to move. And my feeling about this was that there was not a culture of collaboration in the site. And even though they had all the resources, there hadn't been any meetings or workshops or ways to get these teachers and staff members to work together. And so it's crucially important, again, why your administrator is so important, your coordinator is so important, to have these programs that perhaps have not previously talked together, worked with each other. And I think in the past, perhaps some of our CTE teachers have thought that ESL students couldn't participate because they didn't have the language skills necessary and it was too difficult to work with them. And I think that perhaps was true, but now that there is this English support, when these teachers collaborate, it can be really great. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, you just need one ESL teacher and one CTE teacher to start working together, and then share what they're doing with other people to see how well it's working, and then the program grows. So it's okay to start small for your new programs, especially your continuing programs. We hope you've already done this, but if you haven't, if you maybe need to go back a step and pick up some of these other ideas. So the culture is really important. Ask ChatGPT how to help staff members collaborate with each other. We've got Zoe, CT teachers not used to working with English language learners, yes, and maybe have issues with it. So working with our CT teachers to let them know how valuable that can be. Sometimes it can be the attendance, showing them how many more students they could have if they were willing to collaborate with an ESL teacher to include students, because sometimes our CTE classes are not fully, don't have complete attendance that they might. So again, working in that way can really be helpful. Culture, really important. So Steve, I'm not sure what you said here, but it looks like you said that culture is important. Do you have ways to build collaboration and have these teachers work together and feel good about it?
Yeah, I mean, lots of strategies. I can list a few, but I think
Can you
most
name one or two?
Yeah, I can name one. I'll start with number one is really focusing on getting to know each other. So don't have meetings once a month. How can we encourage a lot more meetings that are intermittent? Whether it's you as the administrator walking around and having those personal conversations with people to build that culture. Like, I think that's the start, because culture needs to be tended to. It's like a relationship. And if we just think it's going to get better, or we just think the nacho party is going to fix it, it really doesn't. And so really trying to figure out, get down to the problem of it. And most likely it is not feeling connected at work. I'll shut up now.
No, that's really great. We so appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, and there's a ton of strategies and like ideas. So, I mean, I always look up ways to affect culture in a positive way, but if anybody, they can email me offline, I can send some ideas.
Great. Well, if you would send some ideas, that'd be great. If you could send them to me, and then I'll pass them along to or if you would like to talk about that at a future EL Civics Network meeting, I would love that, because it's so important, and we need to see it from the administrator's point of view, and they're really the only person that can affect the culture, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, leadership matters, and so it's really so true. And leaders are the ones who create and maintain that culture. And so that is super important. But yeah, I'll email you offline.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being here today. Thanks a lot. Okay, let's move on. I think see, where am I? Sorry. I think I did that one. Okay. Okay, let's move to step 5, evaluate and share the program. I think this step is often overlooked. We do the program, we work hard, we collaborate, we work together, our students are doing well, but we're not necessarily evaluating and then using that data to continuously improve the program, or we're not sharing it with those people who need to know about it, so that we can foment the program and get bigger and better. So some of the ways we can gather data would be to have survey and evaluations of community partners, faculty of staff, and students. We need to ask everybody, how did it go? And the two questions I like most are how did it go, and what would you change? So how did it go? Tell all the good things that happened, and then what would you change? What needs to be changed to make it even better? Okay, that's what we're going to assess here. And based on those assessments, we plan for continuous improvement. We want to document our progress and plan our next steps. And we want to share our success. We want to tell the students how great it is. We want to have students come back to classrooms and share how well they're doing, and encourage others to do the same. We want teachers to share with each other. And again, if two teachers are working together, an ESL teacher and a CTE teacher, share it with other CTE and ESL teachers to say how great it is and how they too can have this fund of students and this wealth of success in their students. We want to tell our boards of education, and we want to tell our WIB, we want to tell our industry partners how great it is, and can we collaborate with them to grow the program. So personally, I feel like I've seen a lot sort of stagnation in the group. When I look at the IELCE reports, our programs are doing the same year after year. They're succeeding, but are they growing? I don't see a lot of growth. So I'd like you to consider, how can you serve even more students in this way? How can you serve your community by offering more training programs and getting students to participate so that people can get jobs and that companies have workers? So let's share the success. So on your piece of paper, will you brainstorm how you might get feedback about the success of your program? Will you do surveys, questionnaires? Will you use Google Docs to do that? How will you define success? You know, what makes a success? Is it job placement? What is it? And how will you plan for continuous improvement? Answer one or more questions of these on a list on your paper. I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Okay, and if you've done some of that, type in the chat an answer to one or more of these questions. And oh, I didn't number the question, so you can't include the number. But if you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, any ideas you have about getting feedback or sharing feedback, I'd love to see it in the chat. A debriefing meeting after each cohort, and the team reviews student feedback from final evaluation and work to implement changes. That's great, Jesse. Thank you so much. Share program success with students. Yeah. We want to share individual success, how they're doing on their assessments, student surveys. Good. And remember, this should be an articulated plan. We have an articulated plan of helping students, and we want an articulated plan of how we're getting feedback and how we're using that feedback. Surveys for students and faculty, yeah. The feedback from community, especially our TA program for bilingual TAs. Okay, great, wonderful. So again, these 5 steps relate directly to what you are asked to write in your IELCE report. So they're the 5 steps of implementing an effective program and the 5 steps we want to hear about in your IELCE report so that we know that you're implementing an effective program. So hopefully the work you've done today will help you plan your program and report on it. So this is our continuous improvement cycle. These 5 things: review and evaluate what has been done, or if you've done it yet, and those of you new programs are not at that step yet, but then you plan for either implementation, new programs, or for changes in current or future programs. So if it's working well in one program, you might want to, add that to another program, perhaps where things aren't working so well. Then you want to, after you've planned for the changes, you want to actually implement those changes. You want to write all that into your report and plan that's due every April 30th. And then get feedback again from your industry and agency partners, from your agency staff and students. And then after you fill out your report, you get feedback from our system here, our feedback system, the CDE consultants and CASAS program specialists, who send you a review of your report that we hope is one-to-one correspondence with what you're actually doing. And then if you need some help, then we're offering you targeted technical assistance. And your CDE consultants and your CASAS program specialists are all here to help you. So questions, please, talk to us about it. For resources and training, again, our CASAS webpage, Civic Participation IELCE, is there for you. 2 documents that are not yet, well, the old versions are up, but not the new versions, and that's why I haven't linked to them yet, is your California IELCE report and plan summary. We're updating it a little bit. It's pretty much going to be the same, but there's a few updates going to happen this year, so I haven't linked to it here, but you can start looking at it, and we will have it up soon. And you can find it on the IELCE page. And how to complete the IELCE report and plan webinar. I'll be doing that with the new report, or the revised report, as soon as we have it up on the website. So look out for those two things to help you with your report and with your content of the report. So any questions? We've come to the end of our 5 steps, and then I want to move to our resources and other things I want to share with you. But before we do that, let's go to questions. Yes, it says, will you let us know when these updates are available? I will do that. So I'll send it to your to my IELTS Civics Network list. If you want to be on my IELTS Civics Network list, please email me at lbhoward@casas.org or at ielcivics@casas.org. I'll put that in the chat. Email me with your address and I'll put you on my list. Yeah. Don't put it in the chat here, but email me and I'll put you on my list, and I will, as soon as those documents are updated, I will send them to you. I will also send these slides to everybody on my list just because, but you will be able to access them on, or you can right now access these slides on the CASAS website currently. Okay, so let's move to our, I wanted to show you a sample program in IELCE report format. So many of you are sort of wondering what your program might look like, and I thought maybe showing it in the IELCE format would help. So this is what your report looks like. Again, you do have to fill out a report, but we hope that the report helps you plan and implement your program. So it's not supposed to be two separate things. You're using the report, or the elements of the report should be in any plan you make. So you need to know which industry sector you're working with. So that's one of the questions that is in your report, which industry sector. In this case, this agency chose health science, and their career pathway is health careers. The career pathway is sort of a more general description. More than one training program can be in a career pathway. So you could have this, like this one, Intro to Allied Health Careers, or many of you mentioned CNA, or home health care aid. Those would all be different training programs within the career pathway of health careers, for example. The credential type is sort of up to you and depending on what you're doing, but in this case, this agency chose the local agency certificate. They give a medical terminology certificate upon completion of this course, and then there's eligibility to enter a CNA pathway after they take this Intro to Allied Health Careers, and their model happens to be co-teaching. So again, you'll need to answer these questions, and you should be seeing what kind of credentials you're going to offer with your program. And a question, we'd like to get a list that matches basic credential types. I agree with you. That is a CDE issue. So ask that question to your CDE consultant, please. Okay, here's what our report looks like. It has 3 columns. The reason I'm showing it to you, if you'll notice, it has the 3 columns of the the components that we need to have instruction in, right? Workforce training, workforce preparation, and adult literacy. The form is set out that way so that you're sure to include the 3 components, but don't think of it as 3 different courses. It's not always 3 different courses. If you'll notice here, there is one course of Intro to Health Careers, and in that course, they have the component of workforce training and workforce preparation. And they happen to offer an ESL class separate to that. If you'll notice, it's Wednesday and Friday is Intro to Health Careers, and Tuesday, Thursday, ESL, which supports. So there's lots of ways to do this. Again, in the how to complete the report, I'm going to show you that, but I was showing you this to emphasize that these are not courses, they're components, and they could all the components could be in one course, and then you would list them 3 times here, or they could be in 2 courses. That, again, we'll talk about more when we talk about how to complete the report, but I wanted just to give you this example. We've talked a little bit about single set of learning objectives. That's crucially important and something you must put in your report, but also in order to have concurrent instruction with a single set of learning objectives, you need to write the learning objectives. So the teachers need to get together to do that. Notice that they all start with action verbs. Describe in writing 3 factors of patient abuse. Respond orally to a patient's complaint. Describe orally. We don't like to use words like understand, okay, because it's so nebulous. These single set of learning objectives can be taught to support the English language of the student that they're going to use in their training. And let me get to the end of this, and then I'm going to look at your questions in the chat. And then these are just some excellent practices that some agencies have used for their program coordination. Make sure that they do orientation needs assessment surveys and class follow-up surveys, that they have a follow-up to their orientation, that they do CTE campus tours to get students familiar and acquainted with their courses and feel comfortable being at wherever the CTE is happening. The CTE teacher visiting classes, visiting the ESL class, for example, paid collaboration time, and that continues, continuous evaluation, continued assistance, and navigation to follow the career pathway, looking at schedules so that they are schedules that our students can partake in, registration and enrollment deadlines and forms. One time, one agency told me that the barrier wasn't the instruction. They were collaborating with a community college, and the barrier was filling out the community college entrance papers. And so that can be a barrier to making this training happen. So we need to find out what those barriers are. That was one of the things. Okay. So, and let me look at these questions. I just have a couple minutes. Well, you know what? I'm going to look at these questions and get back to you if they need an answer. Let me just finish my slides here so we can end on time. So I've put in these slides a practice that you might like to do. Consider IET quality indicators. So I've given you these IE quality indicators. I'm going to put that in the chat. This is a document from AIR, our CalPro. And this may be something that's included in our IELCE report this year, but we don't know yet, but it might be. So, but it's something really great to look at. I'm going to put this link in here. It's a list of quality indicators for IET programs. And I'm suggesting that you might want to do this with all of them, but you might want to start with the first section, which has to do with IET program design. So read the first 8 and then see if your agency is already effectively implementing it, if that implementation needs improvement or not yet implemented. If you're a new agency, you might want to use this form just to see what the quality indicators are so that you, as you're planning your program, you are utilizing the quality indicators. So I've put that again for you to work with your team afterwards. And also, I've given you information about writing an action plan. So if you are, especially if you're new, you want to do these steps that I've listed here and write an action plan. So you want to review. Hopefully you can use these slides as a way to work with your team at your agency. And I've put a link to an action plan here too that you could possibly use. I've just put the 5 steps here again. But I've listed all the resources that we have on the EL Civics website. Again, IELCE webpage, all the webinars that could help you. I'm going to put this webinar here as soon as the recording is done. I'll add it to these slides before I send them to you. And then we already have some other important documents, and here are the slides for this training at this link. And there's an action plan. It's just a chart you can use. You can use it or not use it, but that's there for you. And then we have on our YouTube channel, our EL Civics support channel, we have a number of agencies who've successfully implemented IELCE, IET programs, Whittier Adult School, Chaffee Adult School, Sweetwater. There are others there on the EL Civics support channel. I suggest you go watch their presentations, especially if you're new. Some other resources. So the CDE is very interested in what the state of Virginia is doing with their IET programs. And so they're asking us to look at some of their documents. There's a whole IET blueprint. And they also have a checklist which is a step-by-step action plan for new IELCE ET programs. If you are a new person, I suggest you go to this link to look at the Virginia IET checklist, because it's really step-by-step about planning a program. I've also given you again the IET quality indicators. I've listed here CalPro and OTEN, our partners who offer training. Penny, we didn't get to you. I'm so sorry, but if you have suggestions of instructional materials, I'd love for you to put them in the chat or send them to me, and I will share them with the IELTS Civics Network. Remember that there are monthly meetings, IELTS Civics Network meetings, where we talk about a lot of this stuff. Again, if you want to get on my list, lbhoward@casas.org, and someone from your agency should be going to the monthly WIOA 2 meetings to understand the requirements. Your regional consultant can help you with policy and fiscal issues. Your CASAS program specialist can help you with instruction, assessment, and data collection. And I don't think we have time for final questions, but feel free to write them to me and I will try to answer. And I'll look at the chat for any questions here and try to get back to you. We've identified the elements of an effective program and the steps to take to either plan or improve an effective IELCE program. My question to you, how ready do you feel to begin or improve your program? Can you type in the chat 1 to 5? Not yet. Need to learn more, thinking about it. How ready are you to either begin or improve your program? Okay, got lots of 3, 4, and 5s. That's wonderful. I hope this session has helped you take that next step or given you some ideas about taking that next step. I'm thrilled to hear it, that you are doing so great. I thank you for participating. And again, if I can help you in any way, or I'd be happy to set up another training, if that's helpful to you, let me know. I hope you will share this information with your administrators, teachers, staff members who couldn't be with here today, or invite them to watch the webinar, which again, it will be on the website soon. I really thank you for participating. Feel free to contact me at any time. And I so appreciate you being here. If you have, I'm going to stop the recording, but if you have some questions, I would be happy to stay on the line to answer some questions. Let me do that.
Hi, Lori. I have